So I will hand this over to Chung in just a moment, but just so you know, how we run these meetings, Chung will just sort of go around the room and call on folks. You don't have to have anything prepared. It's really just you. Hi, Jeremiah. It's really just you filling us in on what's going on in your jurisdiction and taking a moment to introduce yourself. So don't be shy. If you don't have your camera on and you want to turn it on, we encourage you to do so. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Chung at Wong Partnership in Singapore, who is the Asia Pacific co-chair for this group, which is the technology group. So Chung, take it away.
Thanks very much, Hannah. Good morning, everyone, and good evening. I'm mindful those of you in the West, it's probably very late in the day. Thanks for taking time. So as Hannah mentioned, I'm one of the co-chairs of the technology group, and also on the call today is Peter, but his camera is not on. He's also one of the chairs in the technology group, but Peter's driving and right now, so he can't quite turn the camera on. But yeah, thanks for taking time to join us this morning for this sharing session. And we thought that it would be a great opportunity for us to get together as a group to kind of also learn what's happening around the world in the area of AI kind of regulatory developments, because I think there's quite a bit of stuff that's happening very quickly. Doubtless more and more of us are embracing it and encountering it in the course of our daily work. And as we're just learning, even on this call, Otter is an AI bot that's helping Hannah do transcription. So there we are. I have just a very quick kind of an agenda what we can probably have for this meeting. So we'll go around the room with welcomes and introductions, and we'll probably just kind of maybe also build in regulatory developments in AI and technology in each of our jurisdictions as we go around with the introductions. And also if you have any market updates that might be of interest to other members, please do share. And then we'll leave some little bit of time at the end of the session for perhaps discussion around some future initiatives. So I think we have with us about 8 of us. So maybe we could spend about 5 minutes, or about 5 to 8 minutes for each one of us to kind of talk through these issues. I think I shall not hog too much of the mic and the camera for now. So maybe I'll just kick off by calling on Nick. Do you want to share with us some of make a quick introduction and share some of the updates from Australia?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks so much, Chung. And hello, everyone. Great to be here and great to meet everyone. I'm a partner here at Minter Ellison in Sydney, and I specialise in technology procurement work, mainly technology contracts, negotiation of them, with usually acting for customers with large, again, across the table from large technology vendors is the main type of work I do in my practice. There has been some updates on AI regulation in Australia, although it's a very sort of high-level announcement from the government here at this stage. They made that earlier in the year, and they said that they'll be looking to introduce some mandatory safeguards for high-risk AI use cases, although I don't think they've gone into much detail yet as to what they consider high risk. They're going to focus on those high-risk contexts, and they've said they'll allow lower-risk AI to develop largely without restrictions, which I suppose is good news. Some of the things they've suggested is safeguards around testing and audit, so product safety and data security rules, transparency, public reporting, details of model design and data use and the watermarking of AI content and accountability, things like responsibilities, training requirements, things of that nature. And the first step, they said they're going to have an AI safety standard with watermarking options for AI generated content, with initial compliance being voluntary. But a lot of that detail is still yet to be worked through. But look, interesting that the Australian government has made that announcement. Previously, there had not been much announced in the way of AI regulation in Australia.
Oh, thanks for that, Nick. So, you mentioned that it's going to be risk-based. Do you have a sense that, it's going to go down the direction of where the Europeans are kind of also going with the AI Act?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a bit early to tell, unfortunately. Although I think what they're trying to get at is, some of the troubles that including the Australian government, have had in the past in relation to AI-based or machine-based decision making. There was a whole Royal Commission here, in fact, into what was known as the Robodebt Royal Commission, where they basically sent a whole bunch of letters to social security or social welfare recipients, doing some data matching and saying, what we've got from the tax system doesn't seem to report align with what we're getting from you through the social security system. The AI or the sort of robotic letters didn't really take into account the fact that they were looking at different periods, and a whole bunch of people got into all sorts of difficult situations over that. So I think they're very alert to the fact that there's been that sort of very public issue with AI as used by the Australian government and a whole Royal Commission into it. So I think that, among other things, is what they have in mind for those high risk scenarios.
So there must have been some political pressure as well, I guess, to get something done about it. But
yeah, absolutely. That was a program of the previous government, and so the new government, they announced the Royal Commission, and they have made that investment into AI. So I'm sure they will keep the political pressure up, keep reminding people about it.
Great stuff. Okay, great. Thanks, Nick. We'll come back to you. And other members in the group here. Any questions for Nick or any thoughts or reactions? No? Then maybe we'll just go around the table before we do a bit more of a, Augustine, maybe you'd like to make a quick introduction and share developments in your jurisdiction.
Okay, hello everybody. Well, I'm Agustín Negre, Executive Manager at Alfaro Abogados. I'm part of the legal tech team in our law firm, where we are dedicated to constantly monitoring new legislation in Argentina. We doesn't have a high-level regulation right now, but well, we're keeping all the updates every week. We also have a weekly newsletter about legal tech. But we are working, we're contributing to a laboratory of artificial intelligence at the Law School of University of Buenos Aires called YALAB, where we're conducting various tests to demonstrate how AI can enhance efficiency in legal work. And currently, our collaboration with YALAB involves conducting field research to showcase how AI technology can streamline various legal tasks.
So as thanks for that. Has there been any specific kind of sense as to the type of regulatory approach that the Argentinian government or perhaps in Latin America you're seeing as a kind of regulatory trend?
No, there's a project to regulate AI, but now the political situation in Argentina is complicated, so that kind of things are in the second level
Mm.
there. So
But
we are,
nonetheless, in the market, are you starting to see, clients and just general use of AI? Is that something that's happening?
yes, of course, and the judicial process are incorporating this technology. We have some examples in different provinces. For example, province of Chaco with a family court with introduction this kind of technology to facilitate the regulation and to contribute to speed the process of judicial process.
Oh, that's interesting. So judgments or kind of decisions made using AI related technologies in the courts and so forth?
Yes, this is used in repetitive process, for example, and they are showing that can reduce errors, execution times, simplification of models, that
Right.
kind of things that with repetitive action is reduce the time from in 80% of the time.
Right. So I guess it's still a bit more rule-based use
Yes,
of
of course.
technology, right? Not so much the generative stuff.
No.
Great. So you've got a colleague, Milagros? Is Milagros? Are you available to speak? You're from the same firm, yes, Augustine?
Yes, we are the same thing. This is 10 p.m. here in Buenos Aires, maybe.
Okay. Maybe we'll come back.
Sorry. Yes.
We'll come back to Milagros later. Paula from Mexico City.
Hi, how are you? Pleasure
Hi.
seeing you all you again. I mean, it's been a while since we connected
Yes,
to
indeed.
this route, but it's a pleasure to be here and to hear from you and to share that in Mexico we have had two efforts. One from the civil society we have created in Mexico, it's like a sort of a private organization towards thinking all together how to regulate AI. This is open to the public. You can subscribe freely. You can be like an expert in cybersecurity, a lawyer, or common people wanting to share your ideas on how to regulate this big thing that is coming, mainly focused on the ethical approach on how to implement AI. We always follow in Mexico with these things like in technology and data privacy, the example from the European Union, and with these new rules trying to target risk and low risk uses and services and products. I mean, we think in the firm that we are going to follow that approach. And on the other hand, we're in the middle of elections in Mexico. In 3 months, we're going to change our federal government and also the Congress. So all the initiatives that were filed in the prior legislations are like froze at this point. And we have had efforts not towards having a particular regulation for AI, but in order to amend our general rules that regulate lots of uses, IP, data privacy, and sort of consumer protection. I mean, we're targeting like the particular uses of AI in Mexico, not really thinking of a particular law, because we all know that technology goes faster than the regulations. So those are like the two approaches that we've been seeing in Mexico. I don't see that we're going to move a lot until we know who's going to be our new president and how we're going to approach technological matters. By the way, I am the partner in charge at Santa Marina, set up the TMT, telecommunications, media and technology practice, and also data privacy. And I'm based in Mexico City, and I see here my colleague Daniela Gaspi, who's also a partner, but on the IP side. And we've been working together and to see how to advise clients with what we have, and what we are envisioning to see that is going to happen in Mexico. We are very close to the US. So,
Yes.
and to think on how this approach is going to come, because Mexico is very protective towards the individual and data privacy rights and human rights, not really looking like this free use for big companies or commercial uses on how to exploit all the things that are embedded in the AI, including personal data. So, I mean, we are like expecting to see how this is going to evolve.
Great. Daniel is a colleague you mentioned.
Yes. Daniel, can you hear us?
Daniel, can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
Hi there.
Yeah, I help Paola in the creation of technology in the side of intellectual property. And yeah, we have, even though that at this moment we have not confirmed that, well, there is an intention to create a maybe general rule for AI, but at this moment I can confirm that last week I was in the Congress to talk about this matter in a more profound way, and the intention of the congressman is to wait more about what it is happening right now in Europe. And as I was speaking with Paula in the morning, the way that the Congress is like seeing the AI, the implementation is it's going to be more in the implementation of the industries. I can confirm also that there are some initiatives from the creation side, well, the creative side, that the at this moment they are going for the restrictive way. The initiatives are to confirm that every single creation derived from AI is not going to be protected. So I think it's going to be more not so interested for the companies to invest in Mexico, because there is going to be everything in the state of art, or like there is no incentive for them. But this is just an initiative. In the commercial side, we have seen a lot of queries related to creation of tech, everything AI based. I have assisted in the publishing side a lot of things that are from Gen AI. Some of them from the effects of who is going to have the authorship for every single work, but also the implementation of AI in the publishing side, more from the educational side. Like if I'm going to plan to have a teacher, like a tutor, for example, the consequences that we would have to consider in the implementation of this avatar, for example. Then we have seen a lot of things related to finance, in not just the Gen AI stuff, but in the more just machine learning, like merely AI simple based technology that can in some way predict the economy or the data. But as Paola says, that maybe we were watching a rise in the queries about the implementation of AI, but at this particular moment, all the congressmen, for example, are going to leave for electoral purposes at the end of March. So basically, they have finished their purpose in the Congress. They are like thinking out of the box, like, hey, what additional or what is going to be my next position, and let's see what happens. But I think, yeah, in the implementation of industry, 40% of the companies, the biggest companies in Mexico, are implementing some kind of AI, but in the small companies stage, just only 20%. And that's the other thing that maybe Paula can talk more about. But the digital rights in Mexico and the infrastructure to allow them and to grow are not so big or well created. So before implementing AI, I think that one of the biggest challenge that our country is having is to be able to have the infrastructure to provide digital services in a general overview.
Right. Thanks for that. I think you touched on a few points that we probably can pick up later. One is both Paula and Daniel, you talked about IP related kinds of considerations coming into the regulatory basket, as it were. I think we can share a little bit later perhaps what's happening on that front. And then perhaps I'd also like to reserve a little bit of time to talk about how our firms respectively are looking at AI adoption. I think that would be also useful for us to get a feel for where things are going.
Sure.
Jeremiah, going slightly up north.
Hello, everyone. Jeremiah from Faegre Drinker in Chicago. So like others have mentioned, our federal government is a little bit disoriented, for lack of a better term. So we're not really likely going to see anything at the federal level on AI. There are, of course, a number of committees, research. The White House, I think it was in end of 2022, issued a principle-based Bill of Rights for AI, but again, it's not really binding. And so I don't really anticipate seeing much more than research and discussion at the federal level. What we are seeing, very much like data privacy in the United States, is what we're seeing is 50 states deciding to try to tackle this independently, which is, I guess, good for us as lawyers, but horrible for our clients. And so about half the states have done a number of different bills, whether it's just been, creating task force to research the impact on AI, especially in the employment context or healthcare or sort of sensitive industries. But we haven't seen anything like super meaty yet, that really will apply in terms of what companies to do in building compliance programs. Again, from a legally mandatory perspective, there are lots of states issuing guidelines. Again, the White House has issued guidelines. The one area where we've seen some actual movement on this is in the insurance industry. So our insurance industry, there's it's called the National Associations of Insurance Commissioners. They try to put out model laws on various topics. So they have issued a principle-based guidelines for AI use, which then the state insurance commissioners are free to adopt. So far, 2 states have adopted those principles, namely Colorado is the big one. And really the focus of those principles is to avoid any unintended bias in the insurance pricing space. And so companies right now are really struggling. And although there's definitely a legal element to this, and lawyers can come in, sort of talk about what the principles are, there's a very heavy technical aspect of this in terms of analyzing the algorithm, bringing in the test data to actually be able to determine whether these algorithms used by insurers are resulting in some sort of unintended bias. But again, only even 2 states at this point have even adopted the insurance commissioners' model law. So it's a long way of saying there's a lot on the horizon, but nothing really at this point that's binding, especially in our the types of clients we represent. There is a little bit more for government regulated entities, like government agencies. That's not my area of expertise, so I unfortunately don't have a lot I can contribute on that side. But in terms of just private entities, right now it's much more just principle-based recommendations, with just a lot on the horizon, nothing really in effect yet. And then the only other thing I'll add is we are seeing some state regulators, indirectly address AI issues through privacy. So of course we're seeing like the FTC or some state regulators focus on, where did the data come from? Did you have the ability to share that data, to use that data for the purpose it's being used? Are consumers given rights to say opt out of their data being used for those purposes? It's not always necessarily salient to AI initiatives, but to the extent that there's consumer data being used, we are seeing the FTC and state attorney generals try to use, privacy laws, privacy principles to at least enforce some elements of the AI environment. And I'll stop there.
Oh, thanks for that. You did mention that the privacy aspect of things. So I guess California has kind of led the way on that, right? They've
Yep.
got a California Consumer Privacy Act. So
Yep.
what's the sense now on the ground? Because California is the home state to many technology companies. Practically, in terms of the kinds of solutions or products that they're offering to the market in the US.
Sure.
Are you
So-
seeing that, there's kind of an impact on
Yeah, I mean,
this?
again, more indirectly still, again, you through
Right.
these privacy laws. So two things that I want to note based on what you said. Yes, California was definitely the first one. We now have, I think, 14 states that have almost identical or similar laws. So I think that's important to note. The other thing I think that's important to clarify is it doesn't matter in the US whether the company is based in the state. It's solely whether they have consumers in that state. So a New York company that is collecting data from a California consumer. I mean, there are other sort of triggers you have to meet, like certain revenue thresholds or a certain amount of data. But assuming most, mid-sized to larger clients are meeting those triggers, it doesn't matter where the company is based. So that's what really makes it a nightmare. A Florida company, even though Florida doesn't necessarily have that's a bad example. A Alabama company technically has to comply right now with 14 different comprehensive state laws, even if they're based in Alabama, as long as they have consumers in those 14 states. And so, I suspect we're going to see the same thing in AI, as there is actual AI legislation. I don't think it's really going to be based on the location of the company, but more of the location of the consumers who are affected by it. So that's just one thing to note. And yeah, I mean, there are rules similar to like the GDPR and automated processing, which kind of touches on GDPR and the steps you need to do there. And again, do you have the right to collect the data and use the data? So that gets you your notice, transparency, choice principles, but nothing that's really specific to, here are the 5 requirements when, developing and rolling out a new AI system. We haven't seen that yet.
Anyone has any questions for Jeremiah? I have one. So does that mean that, say an overseas company, right, that's offering products and services into the US and say collecting customer data, I guess the same rules apply? The 14 states that have implemented privacy rules, we've now got to be careful about.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part there is going to be enforcement. That's always the struggle, but yes.
Great.
The law would apply regardless technically of your jurisdiction.
Okay. Nomoto-san.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone from Tokyo, and good evening, everyone in Americas. I'm a partner in the corporate practice of City UA, advising many tech companies, primarily digital entertainment companies like video game or the video animation publishers and developers. And Japanese government's approach to AI issue is primarily, for now, based on non-binding guideline published by the government. And the government has just rolled out draft guidelines for AI governance for businesses, including AI developers and AI-based service providers, and also AI business users who will use AI-based services, B2B AI-based services, and provide their services to consumers. And the guidelines approach is basically based on OECD AI principles. And to that end, the guideline shows certain recommended approaches to the businesses for the development and use of AI for use of human-centric AI or the prevention of false information or the elimination of biases that has been set out in OECD AI principles. And the government is considering some introducing some statute to enforce or encourage adoption of those guidelines by the businesses, but there are no concrete draft or ideas. Those are still being discussed within the government's council, whether to propose new legislation in the near future. And other government agencies like Ministry of Education and Culture, for example, has published long sort of guideline or memos about the copyright issues in generative AI. That includes the copyrightability of the products generated from the generative AI, and also the possible infringement cases, and also the applicability of certain exceptions under copyright law with regard to the use of AI. And they are being published for public comment, and the industry groups and individuals are submitting their comments to the ministry. And it's not really clear how the Ministry of Education will finally adopt their views on copyright issues and in relation to generative AI. But I guess that they will be publishing the finalized comments from the government in relation to copyright issues in AI. That's a pretty long sort of memo or commentary, and it's not binding, but I think because it's based on the Supreme Court and High Court precedents and the experts' opinion, so it will have a lot of influence on how we actually handle copyright issues in AI. And also in the privacy front, Personal Information Protection Committee has issued a short statement about the use of personal information in using generative AI. It primarily focusing on what to be careful when you provide prompt into AI. When you try to use someone's personal information in the prompt of AI, this and that kind of issues may come up. So people have to be careful. Businesses and users of AI have to be careful. But for now, I don't think the government is thinking anything specific amendment to privacy laws or intellectual property laws in response to issues
Right.
could be created by generative AI. The only thing that has been officially considered is some enforcement or encouragement mechanism for the governance of AI, as I discussed very earlier.
Well, thanks to Moto-san. Anyone have any questions, thoughts? No? Maybe then I will just kind of round up as well on the Singapore side of things. So it's very interesting, and thanks all of you for your sharing, because it does look like there are very similar types of approaches that have our various jurisdictions have all kind of been adopting, but it's quite clear that we're all kind of still things are still evolving quite a bit. The regulatory framework that we have in Singapore is kind of, I guess, probably closest to what Jeremiah mentioned where it's a bit more sector specific. We do have certain kinds of regulatory initiatives that apply to financial institutions. So in our case, we have gone a little bit further than insurance companies. So the Monetary Authority of Singapore has got certain specific principles that applies to financial institutions. But we've also had the Privacy Commission release a bunch of guidelines, the Model AI Governance Framework in particular. And then that's kind of more recently been built upon with this AI verify kind of set of principles, which, as the name suggests, goes beyond just the kinds of AI regulatory principles, but moves on into considering issues around testing and verification. So that's the second bit, I guess, that complements the principles-based type of regulation. So what we have, interestingly as well, is there's been quite a bit of work being done along harmonization. So the AI verify testing framework, for example, has been something that has been discussed with the US National Institute of Standards and Technology, the NIST. And what they've come up with is kind of a crosswalk document, as they call it, such that, you know, companies which have applied, let's say, the AI verify framework would be regarded also as having met the requirements of the NIST AI RMF risk management framework kind of requirements, and vice versa. So I think that's also a bit of an interesting development, because I guess that's an attempt at trying to go arrive at some kind of safe harbor or kind of whitelist approach to compliance. But yeah, our frameworks are kind of similar to what has been mentioned in other member sharings as well, based off OECD AI principles. And you know, this quick table here kind of compares, and you will see that what we have started off with in the AI governance framework, which was the earliest put up by the Privacy Commission, has now evolved quite a bit more with the AI Verify Foundation's kinds of, you know, principles, which has gone now into 11 specific types of focus areas beyond the baseline explainability, human centricity types of considerations. And I think Nomoto-san, you talked about generative AI. We now have a consultation. It's an international consultation. So, you know, everyone here on the call, you're welcome also to kind of take a look at it and put comments, give comments. This is specifically targeted at generative AI as well. And the principles that this governance framework for generative AI, they take into account, I think, similar to what Nomoto-san you've mentioned, the provenance of data and some accountability around that. So you would see in items 2 and 7, for example, there is a little bit more focus on the data that's being used for the analysis. And so if you're minded to take a look, you certainly can. I'll share the link. And as I said, the public consultation will end 15th of March. So it's an international consultation, and I guess, you know, that's how Singapore always is. We want to hear how you know, a whole you know, variety of views, and to see how it is that we can make these frameworks more business friendly. A number of you talked about IP related impacts as well. So we interestingly introduced directly into our Copyright Act a computational data analysis exception. So I think we're one of the few jurisdictions that has in fact, you know, recognized a specific kind of a fair use exception This one addresses the issue of use of data for the purposes of now we are seeing generative AI, for example. So I'm sure many of us are aware of the New York Times litigation that's now taking place. So the New York Times has taken up a lawsuit against the OpenAI for all of the data mining that's happened. And of course, over the weekend, I think we heard about how Reddit has signed up with Google to allow for mining of Reddit user posts. So what our computational data analysis exception is interesting is that it's on account of, I guess, a lot of lobbying that the likes of Google and other technology companies did. And it allows for basically research and computational data analysis to take place in relation to data sets that you might have. So that bit's under the exception. You don't need to get some kind of a special license for that. But ultimately, where the balance has been sought to be struck is that if you do eventually make use of the insights that you get from that analysis or that data mining, making use of that raw data, then you do then at that point need to get a license from the original data owner. So an interesting exception has been introduced. A number of you talked about AI as related copyright issues. Anyone wants to kind of share or add any additional perspectives on that?
I have a quick question, or maybe we can just go around and
yeah.
I know that in the US we have state laws with very different content, but I'm not sure if we have the same in Japan or in Singapore. I mean, in Mexico, everything is federal. With AI, with data privacy, with IP, authors' rights, we have a federal law covering all the states. And I think that's going to be a very big challenge for all of us having clients and having businesses in different jurisdictions. I mean, in the US, we always have these appendixes for California and for this and for all the states that have specific laws, for example.
Yeah.
But if a client has businesses in Singapore and then in Japan, I just want to make sure that we are all aware of how our jurisdictions deal with these matters. In Mexico, everything is federal.
Right. So in Singapore, we're so small. It's just that too. It's a national law. Well, notionally a federal law. There's no state, division. Nomoto-san.
Yeah. Also, we are also a relatively small country, so we only have national laws, not local or state laws.
Nick.
We're a relatively small country in terms of population, but we do have different states and state laws. Thankfully, not in relation to AI yet, but certainly in relation to privacy. For example, the different states have different privacy legislation impacting themselves, although not impacting business generally, except for some jurisdictions that have in states different health privacy related legislation. So we don't have as many states and territories as the US. Thankfully, there's only 8 of those, but yes, we do have some areas where there's different positions from state to state. As odd as that may seem, the country of only 27 million people.
So to Paulo's point, would you, typically then see state level addendums in privacy statements and so forth?
No, it's not to that level, unfortunately, thankfully. It's usually just when you're dealing with a state government entity, they may have slightly different privacy rules that apply compared to the national privacy rules, or if you're dealing with health information in some states, there might be a sort of added series of obligations to apply.
All right. Augustine, anything to add to that? Or
well, in Argentina is federal law too, so there's no difference from from jurisdiction.
Right.
But there's no legislation about copyright and AI.
Jeremiah, anything to add? We all know you're very state-based.
Yeah, no, nothing really new to add. I mean, yeah, no, nothing really new to add.
Right. Okay, so maybe we spend a little bit of time then talking about how our respective firms, or how from our own perspectives, we're seeing potentially there being opportunities and challenges for AI adoption in the course of our own practices. Anyone wants to kind of kick off the conversation on that front?
I'm happy to. On just quickly, I mean, our general firm policy is AI is prohibited right now. We
Right.
have certain partnerships and task force that we're working with, including with third-party vendors like Thomson Reuters and others. But it just in terms of internal policy, it's prohibited unless it's a specifically approved product. Right now, I believe the only approved product we have is Westlaw's sort of AI, support tool. But other than that, we're really just, like I said, we have a research lab we partnered with, as well as some third parties that are trying to sort of determine how best to incorporate AI into the practice. Really, the general is it's prohibited. What we are seeing, which is becoming challenging, because particularly when our firm is still sort of struggling with this, is more and more clients asking for how they can build AI into their operations, sort of legal operations, and whether we use tools like Harvey and even Microsoft Copilot. And we can give some guidance and some of really the risks, but that's really what we're seeing more and more of. And it'd be interesting to hear how, if others are getting those same questions, what sort of your guidance is to your clients on incorporating AI in their legal operations.
So when you say it's prohibited, is it a hard prohibition? If somebody were to fire up a browser and then start a ChatGPT session, would that get blocked?
In theory, yes. I mean, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it's like a one-sentence policy. Is currently the use of AI is prohibited, in the practice of law. Now, does that mean you can't use AI to maybe get the research rolling and then go and confirm that? Right. I'm pretty sure people are doing that. I don't know what our GC would necessarily say about that, but it's definitely prohibited in terms of, any sort of integration into work product, at least without any sort of independent verification.
Right. So I guess the younger lawyers would be the ones that, might be kind of gaming the system, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're also the ones that are the most scared. How will AI impact? I think as we get more senior, I think AI at the end of the day is going to impact all of us. I mean, I don't want to fool anybody here, but I think the more senior you are, the more niche advice you can give, the more benchmarking expert advice you can give. I think at least the longer it'll be until we're directly impacted. But a lot of that, like basic associate work, especially first year, second year, that's I think really where we're seeing the AI creep in more prevalent right now.
Okay, great, thanks. Anyone else wants to share?
In our firm, for security and confidentiality reasons, the firm only permits apps and services that has been approved by our systems department.
Right.
But we are using translation assistance services using AI for our translators. And also we have started using AI-based documents review services that will use the data only provided from us. There are a number of options available how the data will be shared with their other clients, but we decided to use the data to be provided only by us and used only by us. And that one is not as good as we expected, but we still we still use it.
What's the specific processing that tool handles?
It will be trained based on the documents data, like contracts, put into the system. And whenever we open our Microsoft Word, that app will also come in as a plugin and highlights potential issues or mistakes, or the
Right.
some possible additional clauses to us. So we can think about it and decide whether or not we're going to include that or not. But basically, they will make suggestions for us.
Right. Interesting. What's the name of the tool? Are you able to share?
I think that was something called Boost Draft.
Loose draft.
Boost
Okay.
Draft. I don't remember the name of the company, but
Right. Right. Great.
Yeah.
Nick, you have anything
Yeah, we're actually using quite a bit of AI here, or certainly experimenting with it. We're part of the Microsoft Copilot pilot. I
Right.
think one of a couple of firms in Australia that have been invited to that. So that's very
Okay.
interesting. We've got a Chat GPT interface in Microsoft Teams. It's a bit more secure than the normal Chat GPT interface. But the challenge with that is data storage. We have a lot of clients who are keen on our data storage or require our data storage to only be in Australia. And so we can't put client information into that, unfortunately. But hopefully that's something that will change over time as AI firms roll out around their offering around the world a bit more. I guess to your question as well, Jeremiah, about providing guidance to clients, we actually have a legal operations consulting team here that does sort of consulting engagements to clients about various tools I think they should have in their in-house IT setup and how they sort of run in-house teams generally. So to the extent that that's of interest, I'm happy to put you in touch with someone of that team.
Is that an actual separate like entity, like a consulting arm, or is that within just the firm, but these are lawyers that consult on those issues?
Yeah, it's part of our firm. They started by consulting to us about what we should do, and then they realised it was such a good offering that clients might be interested as well. So they do external facing client engagements, just like the team, except it's consulting around how you should run an in-house legal team, what sort of tech you should use, that sort of thing.
I might take you up on that, Nick.
Yeah,
no worries at all.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else wants to kind of contribute to the conversation? Because I'm
Yep. I think
Danny?
that I would like to just add that currently we are like doing some these beta versions about some internal software that we are developing, where we have uploaded in some way some general information about contracts, and the objective here is to use in some way this home-based AI to ask anything about the content, not with the purpose of creating more, just to have just a search tool, so we can be more efficient. On the other hand, we have also created this tool for IP services, where I can compare two trademarks from ideological, phonetic, or graphic standpoints. And this tool provides me a result that shows the correct percentage of similarity that exists between these two trademarks. This was almost 6 or 8 months developed tool, which I use a third party to create, but we have arranged everything to be the owners of the intellectual property. We have not given authorization to any single employee to use these open AI tools in a professional way. They can in some way play with it, for personal purposes, but even though they have paid for the GPT-4 version, but we have not give we have not given the okay or the green light to proceed with any more professional, profound way. And the idea, for example, tomorrow I'm going I invited the director of a hub of AI here in Mexico from that made this collaboration with Wiseline. This university is Tecnológico de Monterrey, which is one of the best universities in Mexico and in Latin America. And the director of this hub, I have a good relation with him. So he's going to give us a quick course about AI, general information about AI, the types of AI that exist, to all the partners of our firm. So the idea is to everyone in the firm to have this general idea about what AI is, to implement in some way to their daily basis practice, and to see what happens so we can know more about the scope of and the reach of this tool.
Right. Well, thanks, Daniel. It's top of the hour, but we've had some really great discussions going on here. Hannah, may I suggest that after this meeting, we kind of just send around an email to everyone on the call so that we can continue the conversations. And I think you're gonna do a bit of a summary, right, as well?
Yeah, I'll do a summary, but that'll take me the evening to do, but I will circulate everyone's contact information this evening when we get off, if you guys wanted to follow up. And of course, if you want, Chong, I can share your slides in that email as well.
Yeah, I will come up with some of that information, and if you're, if anyone's minded to make some contributions to that consultation, please do. Or the purpose of the sharing in any case is, I guess, for us to kind of follow up. There have been quite a bit of interesting points raised in the course of discussions today, and Nick, I'm also a bit interested to find out a bit more about what you guys are doing. So let's do that, and then keep that conversation going. Hannah, you mentioned that there is another the next program schedule is for the 16th, is that right, of April?
That is correct. So that's for the whole group. And Johannes will give us an update on the EU AI Act. We know that since the one that we did in June, we have had some updates on that. So he's going to give a brief update, and then we'll have an opportunity for anyone to ask questions. And I do think that is a little bit late in the day for Nicholas, but it will be recorded. So we can share that recording with you so that you don't have to hop on at 2 a.m. or whatever time it is. And then, of course, we do have, for any of your female colleagues practicing in tech, I know Paula is signed up for the Women in Tech roundtable that will be happening March 14th. So please share that with your female colleagues. We would love to have them join.
Okay, great stuff. So thanks everyone for your time, and it was great catching up with all of you and learning from all of your experiences. And we hope to see you at the next technology group event, if not perhaps in one of the other WLG group events as well. So thank you.